Fox Local is how you stream Fox 9 on your TV for free.
We got a big road game coming up, last 5 games of the season, big stretch for us, and so we're excited to get back in the building, get back to work, and get ready for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Welcome back to another edition of Enough Said. My name is Dan Barreiro. I am back in studio along with Justin Gaard and Lori Fisher. We'll get the program started as is customary on weeks that she deigns to work.
Decides
and
to
I
be
guess
here.
This is one of those,
Says the person who wasn't here last
Friday. Oh, that's
Friday.
right. That's right. Yeah.
We learned so much about Lori today that we can't even talk about on the show tonight. Let's just say this
You
whole
just have to go to
show,
social media for that
it
stuff.
could go a number of different ways tonight.
Oh, it's going to be great.
It's
going to be great. Just like the Vikings. They play the Raiders in Las Vegas this Sunday, and we know Josh Dobbs, who we just heard from, will start as quarterback again. There was some debate after Minnesota lost the last 2 in a row, and Dobbs had 4 interceptions against the Bears. Luckily, Justin Jefferson is back after being out for several weeks. Minnesota is in the number 6 spot in the NFC with 5 games left, and I just wanted to say real quick, an Enough Said viewer emailed me, 75-year-old Vikings and Twins fan. He watches the show every week and says, can you please tell Dan and Justin he thinks Josh Dobbs should drop back further to pass?
Wow.
What do you think about that, Dan?
Enough said.
Well, no, I think actually part of the problem in his last game was he was dropping back too much rather than kind of trying to stay parallel with the line of scrimmage. The whole Dobbs thing this week has amused me a little bit because there's a lot of people out in the audience, including some who might listen or watch this program, who believe that it is ridiculous that Dobbs is starting again, and they were clamoring for one of the other 2 choices. I think most people wanted the kid, right? They wanted
Jaren Hall.
Jaren Hall.
Yep.
And what's funny about that is, I got no dog in the fight. I don't think Dobbs has done nearly enough to say we're going to turn over the entire franchise to him beyond this season. But we have this sort of exercise in human nature that plays out all the time, that the number one reason a lot of people don't want Dobbs and they want the other guys is the other guys have screwed up less recently.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're left with. The last vision we have of Dobbs is the 4-interception game, and we say, well, the kid's, boy, he was moving around good before he got hurt, and I'm fascinated with him. And so the truth is we haven't seen him long enough to see what warts he has, because trust me, he does. Just like Mullins, the guy who was supposed to be the backup, does as well. So I'm amused that people are as crazed in some cases, according to the texts I get on the radio, about this is the wrong move, we're done with Dobbs, he's been exposed. I actually have no problem with giving him a little bit more rope. I don't think the whole game. If he turns the ball over, he'll probably get pulled. But I'm fine with saying, let's play this thing out one more week with him.
Well, and the second answer would be Nick Mullins. I'm amused that people don't understand. They're trying to save their season. The Vikings are trying to save their season at this point. Lori mentioned their record. It's 500. They've got Green Bay now breathing down their neck because their young quarterback has started to play really well. Their defense has started to play really well. They're not, I don't think, under any circumstances, turning it over to Jaren Hall. If you have Dobbs and if you have Mullins. So even for those that wanted the Hall answer, I don't think you were going to get that. Mullins would be the more likely one. Mullins, I think, will be the one that will back up Dobbs this weekend.
If he's healthy enough, right?
If he's healthy enough. Yeah. But I have, was it the Bengals with Boomer Esiason that had the drive, or was it John Elway and the Broncos that had the drive? I can't remember.
I think it was Elway.
I'm hearing more and more about the drive against Atlanta before Hall got hurt, that people they're just it's amazing how mythical that drive has become a month later. I think one pass, it was some blown coverage wide open to Alexander Madison, right? It wasn't like he was just moving him up and down the field. There was a 3-and-out. Then he had a nice drive, and then he got hurt. But I'm hearing more about the Jaren Hall drive, like, well, we really should have seen. We should really take a look. I have no interest in it because they are trying to save the season. Now, Dobbs has to play better.
Yes.
The defense has played great here the last couple of weeks. I'm having Cousins FOMO the further and further and further that we get down the line, Dan, where it seems like I think it was Kevin Seifert who said if you have a breathing starting quarterback that was your original starter, you're now a Super Bowl contender with all the injuries that are popping up all over the National Football League. That will always be this will always haunt me that Cousins wasn't a part of this deal, but they got to figure out a way to save it now with 2 very winnable games, Vegas and Cincinnati back-to-back before those division games to wrap up.
None of these quarterbacks are great options. That's the bottom line.
You don't have
Stop pretending and romanticizing just because you haven't seen a guy screw up. The key is a Mike Zimmer lecture. Don't turn the ball over.
Right.
That's the key to this week for Dobbs, for keeping his job, and for the team, which now has a legitimate defense, it appears, that it can count on to actually maybe even win a ball game for it against a Raiders team that's quite beatable.
And you can watch that game right here on Fox 9. Did you know that?
Is there Vikings Game Day Live?
Sure is. Game's at 3 o'clock.
Okay, perfect.
The Wolves continue to lead the West, keeping their winning streak going. Anthony Edwards helped beat the Spurs after missing a few games with a hip injury. Coach Chris Finch, also the Western Coach of the Month for October-November, the first time. The team plays the Grizzlies tonight in Memphis, Justin.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of Vegas FOMO. I wish they were in there right now to use FOMO for the second straight time.
No, you have Vegas FOMO because unlike everybody else at KFAN, you're not there for Vikings.
We're not there.
The Vikings game. That's your FOMO.
Well, it is funny that literally they've lost like 2 games in the last 17. As Lori mentioned, they're 15-2, the best 17-game stretch in franchise history. Franchise is 34 years old. It's been a while. The one game that they couldn't lose is the game they lost, the Kings game the other night, a couple of Fridays ago, that kept them out of Vegas, essentially. But it feels sustainable, this whole thing. Not that they're going to go 15-2 every 17 games, but we've talked about it for the last couple of weeks. The defense is incredible, and it starts with Rudy, and it's just trickling down to everybody. Cat's defending well, Ant's defending well. Obviously, Jaden McDaniels, when he comes back, we know he's going to defend well. It feels sustainable because of the effort that they're putting in on that end. The building is on fire. They're finding ways to win. The other night's a perfect example. They don't play very well. They kind of sleepwalk through the deal, but they find a way to flip the switch and turn it on like good NBA teams do. So not a ton to complain about right now. These are the good old days if you're a Wolves fan. We've been through some dark days. We've talked about them a lot. This has been an absolutely outstanding month, and I have no reason to doubt that it's going to continue because of how they're winning, not just that they're winning.
This is the best sports story in town right now by far. It's not even close. We know this is a Vikings town, but this is the best sports story in town. They're playing legitimately good basketball, anchored by a defensive presence who's, again, remembered who he's supposed to be,
right,
and a number of other people, rising up as well. And, how many different games this year after the final horn have, a bunch of us sort of said to ourselves or to other people who are around who are also basketball fans, that's a game they lose last year.
Probably 7.
That's a game they lose last year.
7
For
or 8
various
times.
reasons, right?
Yeah.
Either playing down to the level of competition.
Right.
One horrific quarter where you say, it's not even worth going after it the rest of the way. Or getting all captivated and angry about a couple calls and losing our composure. All those things are ways this team, as an immature
30.
team, has lost. And they've won most of those games. They're not the perfect team. They still have to actually get better offensively. They got some backup point guard issues. But this should be enjoyed for what it is. This
First
is
world
damn
problems,
good
right?
basketball that does feel like you say, and this is the key to it, it doesn't come off phony. It doesn't come off as, well, there are a couple players who are playing really better than they're capable of playing. The foundation has been built on the defensive side, and that is sustainable even when your offense goes up and down. And the better they play, or the more they win with it, easier it is for the head coach, right, to say, guys, here's the proof that if you keep following this formula, there's no reason we can't continue to be in the upper echelon of the Western Conference.
Best anecdote that Mike Conley told you on the radio last week, the Wolves point guard, about Chris Finch. You mentioned the petulance, you mentioned the immaturity. Those are words used by Tim Conley, by the way, not us. Finchie's teeing up his team basically the entire training camp, entire practice. They led the league in technicals last year. They, as Conley told you yesterday on the radio, we're not good enough to complain to the officials all of this time. I love that Finchie said, I'm going to start teeing you up in practice so we break this habit.
So are you or are you not having FOMO about Vegas? Because I just found if we, after this show, round trip, we could leave today, come back Monday, Sun Country, nonstop, $500.
Okay. Does that include the $44 fee that they snuck in there?
No, I haven't done that
go
whole process. I just got like the original ticket.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there
Can you get
is
us
a
a
flight
press
still out
pass?
today.
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see. The Wild's 4-game winning streak has come to an end. They lost, but it held Vancouver, the highest scoring team in the NHL, to just 2 goals. The Wild are now 4-1 under new coach John Hines, we talked about last week. They're playing the Oilers tonight in Houston. Dan?
We haven't, not enough, as encouraging as it was for the first 4 games. We're now maybe about to get past the adrenaline stage of making a coaching change. And this is when you start to find out whether there was anything legitimate about the push, the immediate rush that they got. And, ignore that and you appreciate it because this team, God knows, this team needed some victories badly, right? But now is when we're going to find out, is anything really all that different with this coaching change? I know there's been some conversation about simplifying, and this is what we always hear when a new coach comes in.
Make it easy. Yep.
We're playing a couple of our stars fewer minutes to get the most out of them. This may end up being a great coaching change. I don't know. But the truth is we don't know yet, and you could argue even that the game last night is a not so gentle reminder that there's often that early push, but will we still be seeing progress end of December, into January? This is a long slog, and you're going to have to see it sustained a lot longer before I'm convinced that everything's fixed by changing the head coach.
Well, you mentioned the star players not playing as much. They played terribly last night by all accounts, right? They
Yes.
didn't play very well. It was interesting to hear, since they made the coaching change, the Wild have been this fast-flying, fast-starting offensive juggernaut. The kids would call them a wagon. They've been an absolute wagon, and last night they just completely got away from that, and Vancouver didn't let them do that. You're 100% right. It's what happens tonight. As Lori mentioned, they've got the Oilers tonight. Oilers are playing well. Now they've had a little bit of a bump in the road. Now they have some quote-unquote adversity.
Yeah.
Do they learn from, because that was the message last night, Hines said this is something the group's got to learn from. We've got to move forward from it. Well, you've got it now. You're right back on it tonight to try to figure it out. And last night they didn't play in a way that that Vancouver, they played the way Vancouver wanted them to play essentially, and that's why they got shut out for the first time all season. How do you bounce back tonight? That's the proof that and even though it's still a small sample size, that's the proof that there is something different than what we had the first couple months of the season.
Well,
it is definitely wearing off, though, the adrenaline.
It is, and part of what has been, to bring it back to the Wolves a little bit, is encouraging. They're basically at the quarter through the season.
Right.
That's not a whole season. That's not even a half a season. But it's been enough games, a sustained success and excellence that you say, okay, maybe I can start to trust this.
Right.
Wild have not done near enough to say that we can trust it.
Coming up on Enough Said, the person of the year and the word of the year.
Ooh, the word of the year.
Welcome back to Enough Said. This week, college students and presidents testified in front of Congress. The students say their schools failed to provide them protection from anti-Semitic actions. When asked if calling for genocide of Jews violates student code of conduct, school leaders said it depends on the context. Harvard's president says some have confused a right to free expression with the idea that school will condone calls for violence against Jewish students. Dan?
Yeah, and I think at least two, my last count, I didn't check, but right before the show, but there's at least two of them that are doing the backpedal,
right?
Trying to get their way, talk their way out of their original statements. The world, in a way, is upside down here. I like the way one of the Twitter smart Alex put it. The Republicans are now the party of safe spaces for college kids, and Cori Bush is the voice of words are not violence, violence is violence. To which this particular guy concludes, and he's right, there are no principles in politics, only opportunism. And that, for me, says it all. There is no consistency to this thing. Cori Bush is a lefty, very much a progressive, and she gave a speech in which she was responding to being called anti-Semitic, and her response was, we have to stop with the words. You say this word, it hurt me. Well, how much? So now, after decades of being told that words are violence, that words matter, we have a progressive saying, they're just words after all. And that's part of why the presidents are in the embarrassing position they're in. You can maybe buy, in theory, their notion that we're here to defend free expression, right, even if we find the expression objectionable. Shouldn't have been very difficult for them to say, when you're talking about wiping out an entire people, that's more than objectionable. That is inexcusable. But leave that aside. If they had, over the period of decades as well, adhered to the notion of we're going to defend expression we're not happy with, but they haven't. Over and over again, what have they done when it comes to issues of race, gender, even politics, many other things? They have swooped in anytime they felt that, do those words hurt you?
Right.
And so now it's utterly laughable to find them believable when they're saying, we found religion on this subject just in time.
Yeah, they're stumbling all over themselves now to try to figure out what free speech is, right? And you're 100% right. It's because they have inserted themselves in almost everything. And even going back a couple of months ago, we've had the conversations, and people are saying, should colleges actually step in on any of this stuff, right? And I think that's probably what you're going to see in the future. They're not going to take stances on anything because they did it for so long. And now this one, of all of them, when anti-Semitism, the threats are out of control right now. You just had a shooting at a synagogue last night on the first night of Hanukkah. And this is the one where you're all of a sudden going to say, we're going to have to think about this. We're going to have to try to add some context to it when it's genocide that you're talking about. But it's because, like you said,
100%.
They've inserted themselves in this stuff for decades after decades, and now they're stumbling all over themselves to try to figure out how to draw conclusions from
Let me
it.
finish with one sickening stat, and this is from a new poll just, I think, released today by The Economist. 1 in 5 young Americans believe the Holocaust is a myth. That's the sickening, if you want to believe the poll, and it's a pretty legitimate poll, that's the sickening place we are. 20% of kids believe the Holocaust didn't happen. It's mind-blowing where we are.
Enough said. Florida State didn't make the cut for the 4-team college football playoffs despite having a perfect season. They didn't have their star quarterback, Jordan Travis, the last 2 games due to an injury. The College Football Playoff Committee bases their decisions on several factors, including if key players are missing. A lot of blowback on this one, Justin.
I have no problem with what the committee did. Yeah, I mean, I still can't believe, it's Friday night, and obviously we kind of summarized the week, but we talked about this on the radio on Thursday, Dan, the level of animosity still that some people have about Florida State being left out. I got to say, I understand it on one hand, but the committee was stuck. They had 5 legitimate teams, maybe six if you wanted to include Georgia. Yeah. You could make a case, but you could certainly make a very strong case for the 5 conference champions. It was fortunate for the committee and college football in general that they never had to face this decision in the previous 10 years of this playoff system. It was a bad system to begin with. I could see an argument either way. I have no problem with Alabama being in it. I would have had no problem with Florida State being in it. Lori mentioned it. They had this language in their protocol. If an important player is hurt or might not be available, we can take that into account. So the committee, I think, took that into account. And you could say took the easy way out, but nobody disagrees that Florida State isn't the team now that they were a month ago. Do they deserve to be in the playoff? Probably, but that doesn't always happen. I had no problem with how this went down.
Do you buy at all the notion that what distinguishes Florida State, though, is that an undefeated record, if you're a Power 5 team,
should be enough?
Should automatically
trump
be
everything?
Enough. Yeah.
I do, but I don't because of the quarterback thing.
I agree. And then this is proof why 12's better. Although, Glenn Mason reminded me, he said, well, guess what? Next year you're going to have a different battle that's just going to be just as subjective and ugly, and that's going to be who are the 4 teams that get seeds, right? And don't the 4 teams get buys?
Yes, top 4 get buys.
Top 4 get buys. Yep. So you could say even that's a huge advantage, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be the next battle. There's always going to be a battle, however you do it, because this is not a pure tournament in the sense that college basketball is, and because it's not practical, right? You really can't do it the way college basketball does. And
probably not.
You probably have to live with these sorts of circumstances. This is not the crime of the century.
It's not. No, we should all be able to sleep at night. It hasn't ruined anybody. Of course, you feel bad for Florida State.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they'll play another game, and it'll all work out.
Enough said. Taylor Swift is Time Magazine's 2023 Person of the Year.
Oh, is she?
It's a big shock. Oh, what do we got?
Oh, here we go.
Someone went to the concert. Time says the 33-year-old
just hold it up like this?
Superstar businesswoman mastermind represents joy. She's taken her own story and made it big enough for
Represents
everyone,
what?
including
Represents
Justin.
joy? Is this
Represents
from her
what?
website? What are you reading here?
And she's found a way to give people around the world hope in dark times, which I agree with.
Represents
Who
joy.
wrote that, Lori? Is that what you said?
Did
you get that right off the internet?
It was like 10 pages long.
You got that over the internet, didn't you?
I did, but
Okay, I thought those were Lori's words, and then I'd even say, okay, as a Swiftie, we need to back off a little bit.
Represents
What,
joy.
I mean,
Well, she does represent joy.
How does she represent joy? She's a very good entertainer.
Right here,
does she
and people
represent?
are so
enjoy watching.
You saw
That
the joy. Minneapolis-St. Paul. You saw
Around
the
the
joy.
world.
Around the world. She saved America one city at a time. Now she's taking South America. She's got Europe coming up.
People watch football now.
Can she step in on the Palestinian-Israeli question? Because that would really show me
She
something.
might. She's
stepped
in on
People are talking
politics
about her
before.
like she could. She could solve it.
Do
She's
you
a great entertainer. That's what she is.
Do you disagree then?
You disagree with
what
the
you're
choice?
saying?
Is that what you're asking, Dan?
No. It's
Okay.
well, put it this way. it's a better choice than SI, Sports Illustrated,
Deion Sanders.
naming Deion Sanders the sports person of the year.
We talked
Yeah, we
about
talked
that.
about that last year.
Yeah.
That's just
Last week.
absurd. I didn't know you got to that. But no, I have no problem with the decision. Sometimes the obvious choice is the right one.
Yep.
And there's no question that she has ascended to a place that's maybe unprecedented. It's certainly unprecedented in the last several decades.
I encourage you to
certainly
read the
since
article.
the Beatles. But I wouldn't say the Beatles bring joy.
They might bring joy. I'm a little surprised they haven't already preemptively named her the person of the decade, even though we're only in 2023, because she's out to a 2-touchdown,
And
3-touchdown
she's
lead
still
over
young.
anybody else,
She
right?
can still
It's
get
her
it.
birthday on Wednesday. This Wednesday is her
That's
birthday.
cool. How old will she be?
34.
34 years
So much
old.
Same
life
age
left
as her
to live.
boyfriend,
And the
who
world
Travis just turned
is
34.
her
Just
oyster.
relax about Travis, okay? Just
Lightning round
chill.
next.
Just relax about Travis.
Welcome to the Enough Said Lightning Round. The Twins report to spring training in Fort Myers, Florida in just about 10 weeks.
Wow.
We found out this week that Byron Buxton will be in center field this season, Justin.
Well, that's what they say now. What's December 8th, December 9th, whatever date this is. It is nice that he's feeling better. It'd be great if he could play center field. For how long? That's the inevitable question. And who's going to pitch for the team? I think we're still wondering about that as well.
Get a
after
starting,
they've lost
yeah.
a
Get
couple of players.
a big time starting pitcher to replace Sonny Gray, then get back to me. Otherwise, I don't want to talk about the Twins. I don't want to think about them.
And I
Tickets
hope
are on
Buxton
sale.
does play center field. I feel bad for him that he hasn't been able to. I mean, that's why he is so valuable, or
Next
was.
up, back to you, Justin. The Gopher men's team beat Nebraska, overcoming a deficit, and the women's team also bouncing back, defeating Kentucky Wildcats.
Man, did Ben Johnson and the Gopher men need that one the other night? They're two quote-unquote high-profile non-conference games. Missouri at home and San Francisco. They lost both of them. They're down 17. Their best player gets hurt. They needed a performance like they got in the second half. Now, can this be the catalyst that Ben Johnson hopes? As we say on the radio, only time will tell. Women are playing great. They've got a big one on Sunday against Purdue. In their Big Ten opener, and that's a big game. Purdue was a tournament team a year ago.
A legendary television writer-producer, Norman Lear, passed away in Los Angeles. He was 101 years old, known as a TV trailblazer. The Jeffersons, Good Times, Maude, just to name a few heavy hitters, Dan.
Changed television, nighttime television forever in a way that I don't know that the kids can understand. And I don't say that condescendingly,
Right.
but it's just true. And the key to that show was, as much as Norman Lear was trying to expose racism, it was about different people with different viewpoints talking to each other, sometimes yelling and arguing at each other, but not going by each other. It is a lesson that is very valuable today, and I fear that it's lost.
Next up, it's that time of year in
Oh, here we go.
Minnesota again. Time to name a snowplow.
Oh,
MnDOT is
God.
taking your
I can't
submissions
believe you're doing this
until
again.
Friday the 15th, and then the public will vote in January. Do you have any ideas?
Well, there's
No,
only
no.
one. There's only one. I mean, we do this stupid exercise every year. There's
I know,
only one.
Only because of Lori.
It's
liking
Taylor
it.
Drift. It's Taylor Drift.
That would be good.
That's what you do. It's Taylor Drift.
I formally submitted.
No, you did.
You did not.
I formally submitted
Now you're on the mailing
so
list.
much Riz because Riz is the dictionary's word of the year. It means someone's ability to attract another person. Other finalists were Swiftie.
You were trying so
That's,
hard.
the,
And
that's the
Tom.
word of the year?
You are
Riz.
trying
Do you know what?
so
Have you heard
hard
Riz?
to stay
Your daughter probably says
Yes,
it all the
I've
time. My
heard the word.
12-year-old uses it in every other sentence.
Yeah.
And do all the moms in the Hockey Moms group chat use Riz, Lori?
We got a little Riz going on, I think.
Yeah.
Enough said.
Oh, my goodness.
And,
There it is.
you know, it could have been Swiftie instead of Riz.
Yeah.
She's got a lot of Riz.
Let's not do the snowplow story anymore, okay?
Just